Kay and Clay. Kicking it with Kay and Clay. Kicking it with Kay and Clay. Kicking it with Kay and Clay. Hey everybody, thank you for tuning in again to Kicking It with Kay and Clay. I am your girl Kay Marie. And this month we're talking about transitions. Transitions is just, it's just a change, from one place to another. And I know that we all go through some type of transition. Like for me, I'll be transitioning from being, single, even though I'm single, but I'm engaged, but to being somebody's wife, later on. So that is a big transition. So yeah, we're gonna cover a lot of things this month, and today is no different. So I just want to start off by saying, guys, just thank you for your support and everything, and thank you for always sharing the podcast. Like I have people listening on platforms I never even knew existed. So I'm like, oh, what? That's okay. Podcast addict. I never, so different things, So thank you so much. And for, just referring the podcast and just subscribing and following the podcast. And, you can find us on any major streaming platforms. Also, if you want to see it visually, we are on Instagram, we're on Facebook and YouTube. So you guys have all that information. Our link tree / kicking it with K, and that's just the WKAY. And you'll find all of our information. So today, you all, is a really treat. I have put out there, and I want you all to reach out to us. Like anytime you want us to talk about anything specific, something that you want to know more about, or something that you're going through and you think that it will be beneficial for someone else, just inbox us on any platform that you see us on, and or email us at kicking K and Clay podcast at gmail.com, and we will reach out to you, and we will discuss about you coming on the show, because everybody has a story. And today we have someone. I always tell you guys that Instagram is like a great networking tool. Met this lady on Instagram, and this is like our first time like talking, and we stay in the same state. So how cool is that? So I just want to just introduce our next guest. Our next guest, she is the host of An Intimate Conversations with Women of Color. You can find her information later. I'm gonna put up on the screen. If those of you who are listening, you know that I always repeat it, and I say it for you. Those of you who are watching, you'll be able to see the banner on the screen. So her name is Deneen L. Garrett. She is currently in talent development, and again, she is the host of the podcast, An Intimate Conversation with Women of Color. So, ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome our guest today, Deneen L. Garrett. Hi, Deneen.
Hello, how are you, Kay?
I'm good, and you?
I'm well. I'm well, even though it's cold and I'm about to turn the heat back on.
Oh, no, you're not.
I might.
You
Yeah,
really like to
I
chill out a
might.
little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that cold. You guys look, like I said, we're the same state. It's been, because in Michigan, we always say that the weather can change just like that. And last week it was beautiful.
It was.
It was in the 70s, 80s, so now it's like what, 50s or 60s?
It's cold. That's what it is. I have hardwood floors, so it's cold. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So like I was telling the audience here in the I was telling the audience that I will say your information, and I am looking for my banner. I'm like, don't tell me I didn't save it. Stuff always happen. They know on here, I totally keep it all the way real. And when stuff Dude, here we go. Yes, it's hiding from me. Okay, here we are. So, you guys, she has a great podcast. And again, she's the host of An Intimate Conversation with Women of Color. And you can find all her information on her Linktree website. So I love Linktree because you can find everything there. Okay. Linktree / intimate with WOC. Okay. So can you just tell us about your podcast? What is it about? Just tell the people.
Yeah, absolutely. So how I describe it's from panel to podcast,
Mhm.
because back in 2017 I had created a panel for LGBTQ plus women of color. So you mentioned I'm in talent development, but prior to that I was in diversity and inclusion, and I still am. I'm just on the talent development side.
Okay.
So I was preparing colleagues back in 2016 for a leadership conference at an LGBTQ plus conference. And so I thought about it afterwards, like, where are the people of color? Like, where are the, sisters? How are they represented here?
Mhm.
And so I created a panel to give them a platform to use their voices in
Mm.
2017. And I led that panel for the next 3 years. And then in 2019, afterwards, someone said, "What's next for you?" And so that got me to thinking. I'm like, well, I'm kind of thinking about a podcast. So this is
Okay.
the end of 2019. So we fast forward to 2020, COVID hits, like that year was about me, choosing me and traveling, bending all kind of corners, right? Every
Mhm.
work trip was going to be extended for personal, and
Mm.
I was just going to be doing the thing, right? But
Right,
yeah,
right.
COVID said no.
Right. Rona's like, stop
Said,
your plans.
yeah, you ain't gonna do that. So, once getting situated with, okay, this is how things are now, how do I level up in this season? And so I said, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and do the podcast. And so Thursday before I launched it, I was talking to my coach, and he was saying to me, like, look, you and I can say the same thing to the same people, but they would only hear it from you.
Mm.
I'm like, okay, okay. And then after talking to him, I started reading Brene Brown's book, Daring Greatly, and in there, vulnerability. I'm
Mhm.
like, that's what it is, because I was hesitant. I was like
Mm.
thinking, oh, it had to look a certain way,
Right.
And so once I realized that I had a fear of being vulnerable, I knew the name of it. And so the very next day, which was Good Friday, I Nike'd it and launched
Okay.
it.
You just
Right.
did
And
it.
I just did it. And so I committed, I said, and anyone who listens to the welcome, they'll hear me say, I commit to doing one episode a month. And I've done one every week ever since.
Okay.
Saturday was my 1 year anniversary. So whoop,
Oh,
whoop, whoop.
yay.
Yes. And I have guests scheduled all the way through August.
That's awesome. Isn't it great when you have it already like scheduled and you don't have to worry about it? That's
Yes.
just a great feeling.
It's a beautiful thing. You know what? And when you have that, the only thing that you have to, worry about really is, reaching back out, just reminding folks. And then if somebody's like, oh, I can't, then okay, sure. Let me find somebody else,
Yep.
move somebody up, or,
Yep.
somebody else just kind of steps up. So,
Yeah.
yes,
So that was a form of transformation for you too. So from panel to
yes,
podcast.
yes,
Yeah. So
absolutely.
because it's a whole nother animal, like you said, you have to be, well, you don't have to, because some people out here just, faking it for the funk and all of that, but you do have to be real, and open,
Yeah.
and for people to see people, strangers, that can be kind of intimidating a little bit.
You know what? And so that's, this whole, your episode is about transition.
Mhm.
And that's a beautiful transition because it's a journey, right?
Mhm.
So from panel to podcast, that's my journey. That's how that began. And it's
Mhm.
continuing, right? And someone asked me, like, what do you see for this? And I don't put any boxes on myself,
Mhm.
right? Because people, society, they do enough of that. They put us
Yeah.
in boxes or try to. So it's about where it takes me, right? So it was a podcast, and
Mhm.
now I'm also on YouTube,
Mhm.
and just, and I have a Facebook group, I have LinkedIn community,
Mhm.
across the social media platforms. So it's growing, and
That's
I'm just,
awesome.
yeah, I'm just, look, growing and glowing and
Yeah.
going. So all of the above.
That's awesome.
Right. But
So
the
you're
point is
uh-huh,
with
go ahead.
the transition, the journey of it, because I'm able to tell people that this is what I went through. This is
Mhm.
what I'm going through, right? As opposed to bam, it just happened. And then
Mhm.
there's no story in that, right? How
Mhm.
does one duplicate that? They
That's
can't.
right. That's right. And it's true, it's like especially like you were saying when you were about to get into podcasting, it's like, what does that look like? And those of us, who started, we had like, okay, so like you said, what does that look like? What platforms am I going to be on? And then like when you're in it, it's like, okay, like everybody and mama have a podcast. So how do I stand out? But my thing is, and what people told me, is just be
Yeah.
consistent, and just continue to do your best, and
Hmm.
yeah, and everything else will follow. Like you said, you grew, you've been doing it for a year. I've been doing it for a year as well, and yeah, it's just, and it gets better,
It absolutely does. And you grow and you pick up things from folks. Because,
Mm-hmm.
like, for me, I'm on Anchor, right? And
Okay.
so I would tell my guests, like, I'm going to give you a quick call, then I'm going to text you the link, and then we'll get
Mm-hmm.
going. And so one of my guests this year, she was like, oh, let's do Zoom. And I'm like, oh, okay, I don't use Zoom, but all right, let me
Yeah.
level up. And so after doing it, I'm like, is this easy? All I have to do is slide this over. And so that's it. As you go, you do grow. You pick up things from other people. Like, I'm digging your setup right here. So,
Oh,
once
thanks.
we're done, I want to ask you about that. But that's what it's all about.
Yes,
You
yes,
learn from people and
yes,
you grow and you just continue to evolve.
yes, you do. And you're also a published author. Tell us about that.
Yes, and you know what? I guess that would be another transition, right? Yeah.
Right.
So, look, transitioning from a LinkedIn author, right, writing articles
Hmm.
on LinkedIn, to a published author. So, one of my three favorite podcasters, she had reached out to me over the summer and said, "Hey, I see you. I see what you're
Mm.
and I have an opportunity for you." She introduced me, to the book opportunity to be a contributor. And I was like, yep, sign me up, you know,
Right.
and, started that process. And then maybe a month or two later came back and said, hey, we're looking for a specific demographic. Like, do you
Okay.
have anybody in mind? I absolutely do. And it was a previous guest. So for me, as I was saying, from panel to podcast,
Hmm.
it's also a sisterhood.
Yes.
So my Facebook group, everybody in there is a woman of color. A lot of them are past guests. And it is that we look out for one another. As a matter of fact, the same person I'm speaking of, she wanted to interview someone, connected her with a friend who actually was on my second panel,
Hmm.
and she interviewed that person Saturday. And
Mm.
so it's everybody is looking out for one another.
Yes.
We look out for one another. We support one another. Again, it's about that sisterhood. We lift each other up, because we're truly better together,
We are, and I hate to sound cliche,
right?
there's no I in team, but there isn't. We're not put on this earth to be alone, to be, just on our own little island, this, hoarding, your coconut that you have,
Hmm.
but we're meant to connect. We're meant to like fellowship and be
Yeah.
with one another, and like you said, that's how you grow, and especially us being women, relationships are everything to us,
Yes.
so that's wonderful when you can have a truly genuine sisterhood.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so for the celebration, I actually opened it up and invited the women and had several of my sisters on the call with me. So my recording for last week is us
Mm.
talking and just supporting one another. And, that's how I celebrated my 1 year.
Oh, that's great. Oh. Again,
Thank
congratulations.
you.
You're welcome. Okay, so I know when we communicated, you had different areas that you experienced transition in, and I was like, I want to hit, instead of just zeroing in on one, I want to hit all three, because they're big ones, and it's
Yeah.
ones that we all can relate to. Um, like you mentioned, you and I do, my condolences. You experienced some loss.
Yeah.
Yeah. So can
Yeah.
you, I did too. My grandmother, she was 95, so she lived a good life, but
Yeah.
still that loss back last year, last November.
Mm.
So can you just tell us about what you experienced?
Yeah, so in October, my sister passed.
Mm.
And so I had three deaths. So from October up until March, three deaths,
Mm.
right? None were COVID related. But with my sister, after my sister passed, and she's a published author. I think she published probably about 7 books,
Oh wow.
poetry, etc. But the one book, her first, was Dreams Deferred, or is Dreams Deferred. And so I was thinking about that book, and I was thinking, like, is there any dream that I'm deferring?
Mm.
Right. And so then I said, I want to encourage other people, other women, to think about if there's any dreams that they're deferring and to do something about it. So I
Mhm.
actually incorporated that into my podcast. So in my podcast, it is, an intimate conversation with women of color. And that's what we're doing. We're having an intimate conversation. I asked the same now 4 questions. And the fourth question is about, is there a dream deferred, right? So I'm honoring my sister in every episode and asking to get women to start thinking about it. And then again, if there is something, like, what do you want to do about it? Right.
Mhm.
So often, you've had a dream. Deferred just means it's delayed, or you put it off on a,
Mhm.
like whatever, that was that dream, and you may not think anything else about it. So
Mhm.
I want to bring that back to the forefront and say, hey, what is that thing you wanted to do that you put off? Well, what you gonna do now? What are you gonna do about that? And so there's that transition, because it was just she and I, right? And that loss. And then January, my aunt passed.
Mm.
And then in March, a cousin passed. And I didn't know him. So he was only 29. I didn't know
Wow.
him. And so, yeah. And so that hit me, because life is too short not to know family members. So,
That's true.
I'm at the repast, and I'm like talking to my cousin, his mom. I'm like, well, who is that? Who, you know what I'm saying? It's like, I don't know any of these,
Mhm.
the kids. I don't know them. They don't know me. And that just, really messed with me that I didn't. And so I'm like, no, we need to, get back together and start spending time together, and, how, whatever that looks like, but it shouldn't be at a repast. Like,
That's
I don't
true.
want that. So
Mhm.
going forward. So for me, like you said, the relationships and being with other people, I've always been a solo person, or at least I have been for a lot of
Mhm.
years. And that's just not working for me anymore, you
Yeah.
know? And so
Yeah.
it's like, nope, want to be around family. And so March 25th was my sister's birthday, and my mom wanted to release balloons for her. So, family and friends came over for that. We were talking and made a decision, let's get together the next week, which was Good Friday. And so family was over on Good Friday, and I was so happy. I
Mhm.
was so happy to have that. It was a beautiful thing, and something that I'm looking forward to, us getting together monthly, or
Mhm.
however it works out. So there's that transition with that death, and those deaths, and how it's impacted me.
So other than, you reflecting back to your sister's book, had you thinking like, what is it, that gift or talent that I'm not using, and
Yeah.
and um, bringing it to the forefront, on your show. Has there been like for me again, my with my grandmother passing, it was different from when my grandfather passed. When my grandfather
Mm,
passed, he was 92, but he was a sharp 92. He can recall
yeah.
some things that I've forgotten, okay? And I just knew that he had like a few more years,
Yeah.
So that caught me off guard. That
Mm,
that was kind of hard. With my grandmother, it was I guess we were prepared for it more, because she was doing hospice at my mom's house, and that preparation, it helped.
mm-hmm,
It
mm-hmm.
helped. And kind of like, okay, she good. She with my granddaddy, and she's not any more pain. So that was kind of different. So what mm, so what did you do to cope with the loss of your sister? Were you guys like really, really close?
Yeah, so that's interesting you asked that question because I'm also been the type of person that can
Mm,
compartmentalize, put things on the shelf and keep it moving. Always
mhm.
been that way.
Mm,
Was that way when my dad died. I was very close to my dad,
mhm,
right? But I was able to put it on a shelf and keep it moving.
mhm,
Obviously, it didn't stay on that shelf.
mhm,
You know what I'm saying? It kind of it reared its head in different ways, which is another part of the one of the three things that you wanted us to I
mhm.
brought up that we want to talk about. But it reared its head differently. And so when my sister, I'm like, I don't want to do that.
Okay.
I don't want to just put it on a shelf. I actually want to feel it, but I really didn't, at least to the way that I thought,
Okay.
right? So for me, it was more about I had to jump into action. So I didn't have an opportunity to really grieve because I had to, plan a funeral and all of that stuff. And so it was more,
Mhm.
okay, the business of it. And so then when it was like, okay, that was done, I still didn't, right? Go ahead and grieve. And then fast forward.
Now was that a choice of yours that you did you on purpose did not want to go there at that point, or you were really,
So
really
yes
busy?
and
Okay.
no. So a little bit of yes and no. And so then fast forward to my aunt. And I was talking to a grief counselor because someone had said, hey, you should talk. And I'm like, absolutely. Because again, I don't want to grieve like I have in the past.
Mhm.
And so after my aunt, I was telling her, I'm like, oh, I really need to talk to you because it's just I'm not emoting. And so she's
Mhm.
like, you know what? You don't grieve that way. Like
Mm.
the way that you're saying that you wish you were, that's not how you grieve.
Mhm.
And it's okay. Like if it's not interfering with anything, if you're not
Mhm.
like sleepless and irritated, if it's not really affecting you, then you're okay with the way that you are.
Mhm.
And it couldn't, still hit you emotionally at some
Yeah.
point or just different ways. But, being like everybody else, other people they cry, so they're
Yeah.
emoting right away. I don't. And it
Okay.
is what it is. You
Yeah.
know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah.
Right. And she's like, and you have, be okay with that. So again, if
Mm.
it's not, interfering with anything else, which it wasn't, then that's fine.
You know what? And that might be setting somebody free right now too, because no, seriously, because we when we think about grief or when we think about, someone that we love passing, I don't know, we probably have a preconceived notion of what that looks like.
Yeah.
Like you said, like the crying and things of that nature. So someone probably watching, they're like, I don't grieve that way either. And they probably thought that something was wrong with them.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
hmm Yeah. And it was like, how like you want to like, well, let me stick a pin. Like, am I feeling, you know what I'm saying? No, that's not how I grieve. And it's
Yeah.
okay. Everybody
Mhm.
doesn't have to grieve the same way. Again, if it's not like I'm not losing sleep, I'm not losing, weight over it. I'm not losing sleep or anything like
Yeah.
that. It's not having any of that. So it's okay.
I
And so
like
you're right.
that.
Yeah, set
Mhm.
you free.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
I like that
that one.
because especially like with grief, you don't want it's good to mourn, to cry it out if that's what you do, or
Yeah.
however that you grieve, but it's not good to like have that grief cross over to like depression or anything like that. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I like that. I like how she said that you just grieve differently, and it's
Yeah.
nothing, and that's okay.
Hmm.
I like
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, somebody like, oh, okay, that's me. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so another transition that we talked about is so you're back in the dating pool?
Ooh, so I said it's time to get serious about that. And so actually that was the end of last year.
Okay.
A friend of mine in LA was like, okay, I'm gonna hold you accountable. She was giving me some recommendations, of some apps and all of that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. And so I did go ahead to beginning of, well, I guess the end of December beginning. I, jumped on a few apps or whatever, and it really wasn't happening for me.
Mhm.
And so I was talking to someone else, actually another podcast host.
Mm-hmm.
And she said that if she were back out in the world, she would go through a matchmaker. And I'm like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
okay, that was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And her thing was, and I said, well, I'm really just, practicing, just trying to get my feet wet. And she was like, yeah, but why not practice and get your feet wet with, I'm just going to say the caliber,
Yeah.
whether that's the word or not, but the caliber of men that you're interested in.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're right. And she went on to say how, with the Indian culture, how they do matchmaking, right? And they will, based off of all kind of measurements that they use,
Mm-hmm.
let's just say they come up with maybe 10 people that could be your match,
Mm-hmm.
but you still have to connect with them,
Yeah.
right? So they went ahead and weeded out people, but these 10, you can kind of fill them out to see if they work for you. And when she said all of that, I'm like, you're right. But now, who's a matchmaker? Who
Right.
I go for that, And so then it became that, right? And I was talking with a different friend, a couple weeks ago, and she mentioned a couple other sites, and I said, you know what? Okay, I'll check those out. Like probably, in a few weeks or whatever. Right at this moment, I'm not ready to jump into
Mm-hmm.
that. But when I am, I want to actually, really be committed to it. And so today I'm not there,
Mm-hmm.
but in a couple weeks or so, I'll be ready to jump into those two recommendations that she made.
Okay.
Ideally, I want to run into them out on the streets,
I mean,
almost
yeah,
walking in the
I like the
morning.
old school way too. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? It's like I remember, when I was single and available, because a couple of my friends, they done the dating sites and all that kind of stuff, and we're successful in
Yeah.
it, and at this particular point in my life, I didn't want just okay. I didn't want like just one type, I wanted like
Hmm.
different ethnicities,
Okay.
so I was like, well, that's be the best way to get out there and to meet, other people of different races. But girl, I did one of the popular ones. I think I was only on there for like a day or so. And I got people in my, sending messages wanting to go out. I was just like, I don't know. And then I did
Yeah.
like run into somebody, on the street per se. And then like that first date, that was a mess. So I'm just like, ugh. But hey, it like my friend says, we're living in different times, and
Hmm.
a lot of us are, really busy, especially, us working women and stuff like that. So a lot of times, the different apps or matchmaker is might be the way to go. But yeah, no, I totally feel you about just running into them like at Home Depot or something,
Right. And what happened to the days, I've had this conversation several times, but what happened to somebody like, girl, I got somebody that you might like? You know what I'm saying? What those days are like over. Like folks don't do that. Like what's up with that?
Look, I kid you not, Deneen. Because me and my fiance, we have our own production company. So it's like I wanted to. I had like some good games that I wanted to create, and one of them being, this was like in the height of like COVID. So one of them was like a virtual dating
Mm,
game, even though it was a game, but it was like for real, for real. So I put the little filler out there who would be interested. Of course, I got a few women like, yes, if you find someone,
yeah.
I'm good. And it was like the dating game a little bit, and like if whoever matched up, we was going to pay for their virtual dinner and date and all that kind of stuff. And I'm still waiting on a good caliber of men. I'm
Yeah.
still waiting.
See.
It was last year. I'm like, this is a mess. And like, I reached out to some of my friends, like, you know anybody?
Right.
Do you know? And it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, I know nobody knows anybody. And you know what? And so what's interesting about that is like, so there is this matchmaking duo.
mm-hmm,
I think they might be based out of Houston, but then
okay.
it's like, okay, where are your men? Are your men only in Houston? You know what I'm saying? So it's like, part of me was thinking, am I just looking for another like delay, another distraction, another
Mm,
deferment by like, oh, okay, maybe I'll look into this matchmaking. But honestly, I did have to get honest with myself as far as what do I have time for at
Mm-hmm.
this moment. And for me, it was, I had to say, okay, I have these other projects going on and they're taking precedence right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, mentally it's like, okay, I'll have time for that, like I said, in a couple weeks or whatever, and then ready to, okay, let me jump into that. Let me go ahead and sign up and whatever, and then go that route. So
Mm-hmm.
it's more of that.
Okay. All right, Deneen. Look, don't I'm probably we're gonna see you on the next season of Ready to Love or something like that.
Girl, look, listen, listen. I'm like, oh, if y'all up the age a bit, holler at your girl,
Right. That should be like a spinoff, So.
Yes, right, absolutely. And you know what? As a matter of fact, I actually interviewed Joy
I saw
from,
that. I
yeah,
saw that. I was like,
yeah,
yes.
she's awesome. Yeah, so Joy, we had a great conversation, and she said something because in the episode I said, I think you just gave us a little, like a little sneak peek, and didn't even realize it, but I didn't bring it up, but she
Mm-hmm.
did, because she said she was single. And so,
Oh,
when the show came back
yeah,
and
the
whatever,
reunion.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because you thought she was with Jay,
Yeah.
and I did love them together, but you thought that, but no.
No. Mm-mm. Yeah, that was I like that, and I liked her too.
Yes,
So,
yes.
how long before you decided? Okay, I'm gonna get back out there. How long were you single?
Ooh, yeah,
Okay.
forever.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Hadn't even really thought about it. Was really focused on.
Yeah.
So I have a 19-year-old son. He's
Yeah.
finishing his second year college, and
Okay.
so that was part of like last year choosing me, right? Because I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, he's gone,
Mm-hmm.
so now it's about me,
Right. Mama can get her groove back. Right.
right? Yeah, all of that. And so again, COVID, and I mean, I
Yeah.
had a COVID state of mind. Like I sat in my front room like all summer, didn't even go on the porch,
Mm.
just to sit. Like I can go out and work on it, but I didn't. My
Mm-hmm.
mind was just so like, mm-mm. Now, mind you, I would go and pick up something from the drive-through and
Yeah.
go into the market and do all of those things. But at home, I was just like on my couch. And I had to kind of start, snapping out of that. Like, no, go out on the porch. You can
Yeah.
take your laptop out there or whatever. And so I had to break out of that.
Okay.
And like I'm slowly getting back. Like I'm traveling the end of April.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so the end of April, I am going to. So when I go pick up my son from school, we're going to
Mm-hmm.
Cleveland. We're going to the NFL draft. In May, I'm going to LA.
Okay.
Yep. And so I'm up here. I was thinking early. I'm like, I need to hit somebody's island, right? So
I'm,
I'm
I'm
like,
yes.
yeah, yeah. So I'm
Yes.
sure I will at some point over the summer hit somebody's island.
Okay, that's what's up. I'm still kind of reserved. It's a little bit
Yeah.
on the plane, but that's what's up. I know I'm so itching to go somewhere too, but
But
yeah.
you know what? I've been watching all these people like catching flights left and right.
Mhm.
Nobody's getting sick on a plane. They're like the planes
Yeah.
are the safest. Now, mind you, you got to land somewhere. But I'm like, look, I've got my first shot. I'm wearing my mask. You know what
Okay.
I'm saying? And again, I know people who are living life, and
Yeah,
so
they
it
are
is
they are living
definitely
life.
yeah. When you get to that point, it's definitely personal. So I don't like knock anybody who's like, nope,
Mhm.
I'm not ready. Or people are like, oh, girl, please, that didn't, slow me down.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, I feel you, and that's one of the hardest transitions that I think we all have
oh,
to been enduring
yes,
this whole COVID-19 thing going on the second year. It's crazy.
yes.
Okay, so then the other transition we were talking about bringing up, you say you have a new role.
Yeah. So the role that I'm in was new as of January.
Mm-hmm.
And the beautiful thing about it is really in alignment with my podcast
Mm-hmm.
because I run our Women of Color program.
Mm.
Right. And
Yeah,
so
that's
from
right in
panel,
line.
right. So from panel to podcast to this program, it's like it's
Yeah.
all intertwined. And that's when things are in alignment, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So everything is like so in alignment. And then also the beautiful thing about it is it was a program. Now it has additional components. And so I launched one of the components, a new component, made sure I had that done in first quarter. and it was taking advantage of our platform. It's a
Mhm.
way for people to continuous education as well as connect with other people. So like a social component. And so I launched that. And now I'm just working on the normal annual program as well as this like supervisor component to it.
Okay.
So that's what I'm working on. But yeah, and you know, because I'm doing it for the company, it kind of gives me a different credibility and a
Mhm.
different access, right? Because I get to write off of the company's name
Mhm.
reach out
Mhm.
to people or say, I want to have this, but it's all in alignment because,
Yes.
you build those relationships and those connections and leverage that.
See, that's wonderful when everything just comes together. That's just
Hmm.
that's when you know that you are in the right place at the right time.
Yes.
I
And
think.
oh yeah. And I'm about to tell you another one that just happened within the last few minutes. You mentioned you're in production.
Mhm.
And my inspiration is Issa Rae. So I
Yeah,
don't know if you
she's
follow Issa.
she's one of mine too. Yeah, yeah.
Right. Yeah. So listening, I've been listening and watching on YouTube different things that she's on and what
Mhm.
she's talked about and what she's sharing and how, she started doing these webisodes
Yeah.
from
Mhm.
her college dorm.
Mhm.
So she did her dorm diaries. She did something for her brother. Then she did the awkward black girl.
Mhm.
And then that catapulted her into Insecure.
Mhm.
And so I don't know if you're following, but where she is now, she just inked an $8 million, well,
Mhm.
not 8 million, but an 8-figure deal.
Oh yeah, I read
And
that.
she launched a
Mhm.
whole nother company. Hooray or
She
hoorah.
she is doing it.
She's doing it.
She's
She's doing
doing
it.
it.
And so it's not that I want to do those things,
Yeah.
but what it did for me is, like I said, I was doing Anchor, just, audio. Now it's Zoom. I put that in, I put it on, recording visual,
Mhm.
put it on YouTube. And so it's like, okay, how do I attract people? So it's the excitement on that, right? And the
Mhm.
year of my production, I already told you I like this little setup. So
Mhm.
no accidents, right?
Right. None whatsoever.
So yes, but yeah, so that's a transition in the workplace. So it's like I said, I went from the diversity, equity, and inclusion side to the talent development side, and what I'm leading, managing, is pretty much is in alignment with my
Mhm.
podcast.
Now did the job did they know that you host this podcast and they were like, yeah, Deneen would be nice for this or
You know what? So I can't say that they did or didn't.
okay.
I just know that the person who called me to say, "Hey, this is what you're going to be doing," told a peer of mine, "Oh, she's going to be happy. She's going to be happy." So
Right.
I was like, "I don't know, probably," but it didn't know it from me.
Okay, okay. Oh, that's I'm even though we just like officially met, I am genuinely happy for you. I'm happy where everything is going to take you,
Yeah,
and it's just what it's gonna get better from here.
thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes. All right. Well, that was good. That was good. And yeah, that was I got that what really stuck out was what the counselor said is that's how you do things. So don't don't think it's strange. That really stuck out to me. So I
Right.
think I thank God for just having this platform because you come across different people and you always learn something and
Hmm.
and we should always have that mindset of learning something every something new every day and I always learn something when I do one of my shows and thank you.
You're welcome, and that's like my favorite part. Someone said, "Well, what's your favorite part?" I'm like, connecting with the people.
Yes.
Connecting with my guests, getting to learn, and with most of them building that relationship, right? Because most of them we stay connected, and
Mm-hmm.
and it's just growing your sisterhood, and I love
It
that.
is. It is.
Because we have to be look out for one another. We
We
have to support each
do.
other. We have to amplify what we're doing. So yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially as Black women, because
Hmm.
we're like on in society's eyes, like low on a totem
Yeah,
pole when it comes to everything. So we really have to work hard and just support one another. Don't tear each other down because everybody else is doing that already. So just be there for one another and support one another. So
absolutely.
yay. So thank you so much, Deneen. This was a great episode.
You're
And
welcome.
yeah. And again, you guys, tune in to Deneen's podcast. She is the host of An Intimate Conversation with Women of Color. You can go to her website, Linktree dash intimate with WOC. Okay. And you can find everything there. And she's on Instagram, and you can find her there. And yeah, she is her show is really really good. So go follow her as well and support her too. We it's enough out here where everybody can eat, y'all. Okay.
Right.
Oh, come on. All right. And again, you guys, just share, comment, like the podcast, and you can find us again on any major audio platforms, and including iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Spotify. Just all the ones. So, and if you want to watch it, I post on our IGTV on Instagram, our Facebook page, Kicking It with Can Clay, and our YouTube of the same name. Thank you so much. Thank you, Deneen, again.
You're welcome.
And everyone, you be safe out there and just know that, you are not weird, when it comes to different things. If you don't cry, when you grieve, I'm like, seriously, that's you. It's okay. It's okay. Me, I'm a big crybaby, but you know, that's just how I am. But thank you, everyone. Enjoy your day whenever you're looking at this. And we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Picking it with Kay and Clay. Picking it with Kay and Clay. Picking it with Kay.